everyone's done with our SACSCOC process, and I want to pay special tribute to Rebecca. Rebecca has done outstanding work over the past 18 months, 2 years, maybe 3 years now, as we are getting ready for the visitation. And so we thought it would be wise to have everyone get together in our cabinet. And those of you who are part of the cabinet who did not know until today you're part of the cabinet, congratulations for being on the cabinet. But we like to include you with these major processes. And there's nothing more important actually than our college doing well with the reaffirmation process. As you know, this is very important to our students that we do well. And God forbid if a college were to lose accreditation and be put on probation as a step toward that, if the college would lose accreditation, as some have, the students are severely impacted by not being eligible for any federal aid, which would impact our college tremendously in terms of the students getting Pell Grants, veterans getting veterans benefits on down the line. So worst case scenario, it would be absolutely devastating to our students. So that's the most important reason that we go to the great lengths we do to make sure we do well in this process. In addition to that, it would be extremely embarrassing to our college to not do well. And as you know, our reputation for excellence is one that is helping us with the legislature as we go through various challenges with the legislature. One reason we generally end up doing well is because the college has such great reputation for excellence, and that's because of all of you. So the final reason that we want to do really well with our reaffirmation process is because this is our way to change the world. And what all of us do here with our jobs, it's not only a profession, but I think in many ways it's a vocation for us. This is the way that we make those lives better. And when you look at the SACSCOC process, it's one that if we look past the worst case scenario and not really focus on that quite so much, but look at it as a way for us to become even better, each of us individually and as a college. When we're going through these processes, they invariably, if we have the right attitude and right approach, make us better professionals and a better college. And this serves our students well, and it serves our community well. So I want to thank each one of you because you are all working hard. Everybody at our college is doing multiple positions. And in light of the fact that we are 18 months into a global pandemic, we can become frustrated, we can become despondent, we can become depressed. Well, I urge each of you not to do that. Keep focusing on the good that we're doing, and the college is doing great things. So with this process, please look at it in a way, no matter what you're asked to do, whether those of you in the cabinet or those, as we're recording this today, and we're going to allow we're going to ask our employees to watch it, so they're ready for their role with this important mission as well. But as we're doing this, to look at that individual out there, think of that individual who is counting on us to get the best education possible, and look at this process in which we are all driven crazy by the many things we have to do to live up to our obligations in this process, but to look at it as a way for us to get even better. And I think if we look at it that way, and as we go through the QEP process and the other processes, okay, we see ourselves becoming much better. So now I think I see the emergence of I don't see Michelle, yeah, Michelle Willis, but and normally she skips my inspirational introductions and comes in afterwards. Just kidding, just kidding. But Michelle does a great job. I want to go around and first of all just thank each of you individually, and then we're going to turn it over to Rebecca, and then we're going to ask Jamie to speak as well, and then you all get the opportunity to make comments or ask questions at the end. But the big thing I want to have you walk away with is the fact that you are appreciated in all you do. And I have a high regard for all of you who are on this cabinet, very dedicated and talented people. And we're fighting the good fight and doing well. And this is our chance to do even better. So start by thanking you, Rebecca, for the outstanding job that you have done. This is thankless work. Rebecca, for those of you who know Rebecca, know that she takes this very seriously. And the slideshow that you're going to see, Rebecca did this in about 2 days after she and I talked, and it's an outstanding presentation and typical of her work. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Christy Warner, who does a great job working with our students, and of course has been very involved with the VISO and just in general, making the lives of students better. Christy, thank you for taking part. And Sandy Wall, who is, I think, one of the best professionals in our nation in terms of informing the public of what a college is doing. And Sandy is the type of professional that I've always highly regarded from the media business, somebody who worked hard and did great work and has a great team spirit. So Sandy, thank you for taking part. Neil Callahan, who is an outstanding faculty member and now outstanding department chair. And Neil's the kind of faculty member that is typical of what we have at our college, very dedicated to our student, and someone that we can count on to be doing a great job for our students day in, day out. And Neil, so thank you for what you're doing. Jamie Gibbs, our outstanding Vice President for Student Services. Jamie, day in and day out, is a great role model for our students, and somebody that I'm very honored to have at our college as a Vice President. Does an outstanding job. Jamie, thank you for taking part in this. Derek Godwin, who is doing a wonderful job working with our CCP students. And recently we gave Derek some more responsibilities. I think that's the one constant with all of you, is that with our small staff and our big vision of how to serve students, I think all of you have taken on more responsibilities and continue to do a great work. But Derek oversees the Bayboro facilities now, as well as in terms of the operations, and reports to Michelle Willis, and also works with the students there. Derek, thank you for taking part in this. Scott Fraser, our Vice President, who oversees the campus operations, including IT and facilities. And Scott works diligently to make sure that we all have the tools we need, the equipment we need. And Scott does a tremendous job in his role. Scott, thank you for taking part today. Paul Goodson. Paul's someone that when I first interviewed him, as he was the recommended candidate for the librarian a couple years ago, I was very impressed with Paul. And Paul is one of those people who extremely intelligent, has a fantastic background, great background in research, writing, gets along great with people. And Paul is, like many of you, someone that just meeting him, you know that he has talents that probably will continue to emerge as we go forward. And Paul, it's wonderful to have you as part of this, and I appreciate all that you do. So thank you. And Michelle Willis, our extraordinary Vice President for Instructional Services. Michelle, talk about somebody who took on more. When Michelle became the permanent Vice President, she added on all of those duties, but she didn't lose any of her other duties, including overseeing prison operations, and just does a fantastic job, and great leader, great team leader. Michelle, thank you for taking part in this. Sherry Raby, our Chief Financial Officer, Vice President for Business Operations, and Sherry is someone who works day and night to make sure that the college is in great shape with all that we do in the business operations, and is an extremely valuable part of our leadership team, who I rely on heavily. And Sherry, thank you for your great work. And Eugene Elliott. Eugene is a wonderful person for our college to have, with his great background in public safety. And Eugene oversees our public safety aspect for the college. And Eugene works very, very well with law enforcement, with our leaders of law enforcement, leaders of the rescue squad, leaders of the fire department, and works tirelessly, has a great experience in that. And we're expanding our partnerships with the public safety part of our community to reflect the important role that they have to make our community better. And we've been able to invest heavily in state-of-the-art equipment that will allow our public safety community to be trained by us with some of the best simulating equipment anywhere in the state of North Carolina. So Eugene, thank you for your great work. Michelle Novair, who not only assists me, but Michelle, like many of you, took on extra duties, and now also is the outstanding executive director of our foundation. So Michelle, thank you for your consistently great work. And we have Fida Rowe, who Fida's working very, very well with Rebecca for our SACS reaffirmation process. And you see her in her office working diligently, and she's got an outstanding background. And our process is better because of her. Fida, thank you very much. Kathleen Osteen, a department chair, and Kathleen Osteen oversees our allied health department chair duties, and that's a growing part of the college. And we appreciate your involvement with the SACS process as well. And Lori Giles, who was doing a great job over continuing education, and has expanded it a great deal, and very results oriented, and a wonderful addition for our college when she came on board a few years ago, and our continuing education program is doing great as a result of her. Did I miss anyone? If not, thank you. You'll be our cabinet for this year, and we'd like to look to you for guidance on many issues. The cabinet has played a vital role in allowing us to get through the coronavirus pandemic to this point, and your input has been extremely valuable in the early stages, middle stages, as far as how we would operate. And when we went back physically on campus, how that would work, and it's worked out very, very well. And your involvement was very, very important to us in terms of recommending where we would spend money for equipment in supplies. So thank you to all of you. The thing that I want to just say to you again before turning over to Rebecca, you are so appreciated, and the fact that the college has gained the national reputation for excellence that we have is because of each of you. And every time we get a national or a statewide award for excellence, I always, to the press, very, very sincerely point to all of you for what you do. And I know you work very, very hard. But please know that every ounce of effort that you make is deeply appreciated, and I do believe it makes lives better with all that you do. So with that, I want to turn it over to Rebecca, and again, this is recorded, so this will be available for airing again if any of you want to watch it, or for all of our employees to watch as well. And the thank you goes to all of our employees for the great work that they do. And this week, we received another award that we have not yet released to the public. It will be done next week, but where we are recognized as the best community college in North Carolina, using the various criteria that have been used to recognize us as the nation's #2 community college and the nation's #1 community college in student success. So those of you watching who are employees, thank you for all you do to make our college respond to students, respond to our community, and make lives better. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca. And Rebecca, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ross. So everyone should have received an email yesterday afternoon. It has the PowerPoints that I'm going to go over, so you don't have to scramble to take notes. It's going to be all there for you. If anyone's watching this later and wants to see it, just send me an email and I'll send those to you as well. And I gave you some supporting documents in that email that I'll go over a little bit today. So let me share my screen here. Hopefully I'll do this right. Oops. I hate these dual monitors sometimes. I'm assuming you guys are seeing the wrong screen. Hold on. Okay, can someone give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the full screen that you're supposed to be seeing? Okay, thank you,
Dr. Pesko.
Okay, thanks a lot. All right, so today we're going to go over a little bit of the history of reaffirmation, just SACS 101, how the reaffirmation process works, where we've come, where we're at, and what's coming ahead. So hopefully when you leave this meeting today, you'll have a pretty good sense of what's going on, other than the fact that Rebecca's working on SACS. So that's my goal. Once I can move forward. Oops. Okay, so here's our overview. So SACSCOC is a regional, well, now it's a national accreditor, but it's generally referred to as a regional accreditor, meaning that everyone from Virginia to Texas to Florida is accredited by SACSCOC. The other regions have accreditors as well, and a lot of these standards are the same, but if you come from outside of the region, you'll probably observe that SACSCOC tends to be a little bit more stringent than some of these other accreditors. Every 10 years, we are reaffirmed. So that's like the big test, you know, make sure that we are A-OK, we can continue to receive federal money, we're compliant with federal standards, and we're compliant with SACSCOC standards. Every 5 years, there's a little check-in just to make sure we're still doing what we said we were doing. So our last reaffirmation and on-site, which some of you were part of, was for the 2013 reaffirmation. So they visited in 2012. They said in 2013 that we were reaffirmed. At that time, there were a couple standards that just weren't clean enough. So they had us on monitoring so we could continue to show improvement. And that monitoring ended right around the time, a little bit before I fell into the SACS world. I came into this position, I think in 2017, I have to double check, right before our 5th year report was due. So the 5th year was that check-in. During that time period, our standards changed. So every 10 years, SACS revises their standards, and they did a pretty significant overhaul. So some of you may remember from the prior year, it was like 3.1.1.2. That was the old numbering system. Now it's 10.2 or 10.12. You know, it's just a little bit cleaner. There's a big crosswalk. A lot of reorganization went on. We did the 5th year. We came back great. Everything was a-okay. And since the 5th year, we've been improving our processes in the effort to get the 5th year going. There were a few things that needed to be strengthened and or revised, and we've been doing that up until the point that we're at now. Our on-site visit for our 2023 reaffirmation is October 18th through 20th. 2022. So if you haven't already marked that calendar on your calendar, please do so. We need as many people on campus and available for interviews and just to show a strong presence at that date. So October 18th, 2022 is always a little misleading because we're the class of 2023. So you think, oh, they're not coming until 2023, but nope, they'll be here in October. So they will make their final decision in 2023. That's why we have that discrepancy. So our timeline here, right now, what we're working on is the compliance certification. So the compliance certification is the big written report. That's where we have all of our responses to the narratives and all the supporting documentation. And the purpose of the compliance certification is to prove that we can demonstrate evidence of compliance. So we are showing, we know that this is what you expect. This is how our college is demonstrating compliance, and here's all the supporting documentation to prove it. So it's a pretty lengthy report that you're going to get to be very friendly with in January. And there are a lot of supporting documents. So, you know, maybe the report and its end will be, 150 to 200 pages, but there are thousands and thousands of supporting documents attached. So, pages. So just so you're kind of aware of what it looks like. That digital submission is going to go in on February 14th or by February 14th. We're hoping it's going to be digitally submitted. That's why we have this January 31st deadline. We are lucky enough to be in the transition phase of SACS, going from mailing thumb drives with our report on it to digitally uploading it. And we don't know how smooth that will go. To show you where we've come, back in 2013, you actually had to mail the binders. So we're making progress. Then this on-site committee, this group of about 6 or 7 people from other smaller community colleges, by SAC's definition of small, we're still talking several thousand in enrollment, from outside of the state of North Carolina, will review our compliance certification. And on every single standard, they will make a verdict, compliant or non-compliant. That process will take place April 21st to 22nd. So please mark those dates on your calendar as well. The likelihood that I'll need to reach out to you is slim, but there is a chance that our SACS VP may reach out to me as the liaison requesting clarification on something that was submitted. And in turn, I may need to reach out to you. So that usually doesn't happen. Usually they work pretty independently. And if in doubt, they just mark non-compliant so the next committee can look at it. But there is a slim chance that I might need to reach out to you on those dates. So if you could just mark those in your calendar as well, so that you would know to check for emails from me, I'd appreciate it. They will make a determination on each of those standards, and they will give us a report back. I'm not really sure when to expect that. I'm guessing May. And then we have a chance to respond back. So they'll say these standards were deemed non-compliant. You didn't do enough to prove that you're compliant with these standards. Just about everybody comes back with findings. I think it's something like 98% of the schools out there come back with findings. So we will have findings. That's okay. That's not a panic mode that we had findings at this phase. We anticipate that. We've already identified some standards that we believe are likely to be found non-compliant and are taking steps now to work toward demonstrating compliance for our response. So they give us these findings. And then 6 weeks prior to their visit, we give them more information to demonstrate compliance. Sometimes it's simple things like we only showed 1 year and they wanted to see 3 years to demonstrate a pattern. Sometimes it's things like that, or maybe we determined this was this type of stuff we were going to show and they want a bigger scope of that. So those are the types of things that are typically in findings. We submit our responses and the copy of the QEP before their on-site visit, so 6 weeks before. And then we get a whole fresh committee. So we get a whole different committee for the on-site. So the people that review it the first time are not the people who are going to be here on campus. The people who are coming on campus in October will get our original document that we submit and our response to the findings and other documents that they may request as they're reading and preparing to come visit us. So they come with everything. They have the whole history of this. And their job here is to dig into the standards that we had findings with, and to also verify all the core requirements are compliant. So even if the offsite committee says you're doing a good job with these, the onsite does a double check. The core requirements are federal requirements. So that's why they have to look again. And I'll show you later today where to find that information. While they're here, their goal is to help demonstrate compliance for us. They're not here to dig and find and come away with, yeah, we got that institution. And my experience, and I'm sure Jamie will say the same thing in our observations with on-sites this past month or two, their goal, that committee worked hard to help that school demonstrate compliance. So they're here to be objective peer reviewers, but they want us to be successful. So keep that in mind. It's going to be a little bit of a stressful situation, I'm sure. You know, a lot of work has gone into this, but they have our best interests at heart. They will make a determination, and we will know the results before they leave. We won't have the written report, but they will announce the results before they leave, and we will know which standards maybe we're still not compliant at that point. Hopefully they'll just say, oh, you're great, congratulations, and they'll go on their way. And that does happen. That's definitely our goal. But that, you know, if they have any findings, they'll announce them at that time. Then we get another chance to prove we're compliant. We have about 5 months after that to provide some more supporting documentation. A lot of times the QEP is an issue at this point, so we can rally our resources around to make a stronger, more effective QEP. And then we submit that information along with all these documents from this whole process. And those will go to the SACS Board of Trustees in June 2023. They will review everything from the beginning to the end and determine our institution's status. At that time, they will say, yes, everything's great. See you in 5 years for that check-in. Or they may say, things are looking pretty good. You have a great plan for compliance, but we need to see some evidence of that over the next 2 years. That would be monitoring. The worst case scenario is they're like, yeah, you're not doing good. You're put on probation, and then we'll see. We'll be really, involved with you for a little while. So hopefully we're not there. I don't think we're there. I feel pretty good about it going into it, but those are the processes. Resources for reaffirmation. We have several good resources. You were emailed the resource manual. That is sort of the logic behind why each of these standards exist. And it's very, I'm going to go over a little bit later today, but it's kind of the Bible of this process. There's also a handbook for institutions seeking reaffirmation. If all of that timeline stuff that I just went over is something that you forget next month, that's where you're going to find that information. You can always reach out to me too, but it's kind of a step-by-step of this process with a lot more information than what I gave you. And then the SACSCOC website, which I took a screenshot down here below, has a lot of policies, guidelines, and position statements. So a lot of times, there's a question about, how does SACS view this? Try using the keyword search and you'll be surprised what you come up with. These are usually standards that people are confused about, not really sure how they're supposed to be doing them on their campus. And so they'll write a position statement to give them some guidelines as to how we're supposed to approach it. The compliance certification, the big written report, is something that has multiple sections to it. that kind of covers everything in our college. So I've highlighted some of the major sections here, but basically they're looking at everything from our governing board, our board of trustees, all the way to our buildings, whether we have adequate physical resources for students. They look at our programs of study, how they're created. They're looking at our relationship with the system office, what's its role in our organization. They're looking at the credentials of our faculty, our program coordinators, which for us is usually our faculty as well. It's a dual hat situation. They're looking at just about everything, our student services, everything that you see on campus. Con Ed is probably the only area that they just don't really touch at this point, and I hope it lasts that way. Con Ed's probably the one thing that can kind of happily move in the background for now. Hopefully it'll stay that way. We are fortunate to be in a differentiated review. This is something new. SACS has never done that before. We're the first class to have been able to apply for a differentiated review. And the criteria for being approved for this process was that we had to do well in the 5th year. So all that work that we did in the 5th year has already paid off because we were approved for differentiated review. We have had steady CEO tenure. There was a criteria of about 5 or 6 things. We met that criteria. And so we were approved for this. This means that some of the really redundant standards, a lot of the standards are not included. Fortunately, some of these standards are the most commonly cited ones too, and we don't have to respond to them. It doesn't mean that we don't have to be compliant with them, but it means we don't have to write and demonstrate evidence of compliance. So that was a good thing. When you read later, you're going to end up learning how you're going to be reading the compliance certification. There are a few standards you should probably spend a little extra time on, and those are the ones that are most commonly cited. So I've highlighted, there's a bigger list of this, but remember we're differentiated reviews, so we don't have to respond to all of them. These are the ones that are relevant to our institution. And the percentages to the side indicate the number of institutions who are deemed non-compliant at that offsite. So remember, the offsite's our first look at this compliance certification. The one that should really jump out to you is 6.2a, faculty qualifications. We have a pretty extensive roster of everybody who's taught curriculum from last spring and this fall. And FIDA and I and a lot of people, including HR, have been spending a lot of time on that roster. We are fully anticipating just being like 92% of the rest of the world out there receiving findings on this. We've definitely put a very nice roster together, but FIDA has already been working in the background to prepare documents for our on-site review. So we're not scrambling to do this. So when we've identified potential problems while we're writing, we're also taking measures to prepare for a deeper dive when they come in the on-site. The program faculty and program coordination, those are typically credentialing issues as well. So there's a big trend. Credentialing is always a big hot topic in an offsite. And qualified officers is a credential issue as well. Officers, by the way, for SACS, for their perspective, if you have a director anywhere in your title, you are on that roster for qualified officers. If you're a chair, you're on there as well. So it covers a big chunk of our staff. Next one. The on-site committee cleans up a lot of those. As you can tell, the list gets a lot smaller. So these are the most commonly cited by the time the school makes it through the on-site. Again, that faculty qualification still stays on there. You can see that still sticks at 22%. The quality enhancement plan pops up for the first time because that's the first time that they've seen it. 45% of institutions have a little bit of issue with their QEP. And I think that's an important expectation to understand. If they come back with a finding for a piece of our QEP, again, it's not a failure. We have a chance to fix it. We are in good company with 45% of the other institutions in SACS. So you just kind of have some realistic idea moving into it. If these are in blue, bolded, it means they also were deemed non-compliant at the Board of Trustees level. So these are our big areas: student outcomes, that's the PSLO, WEAVE stuff, the CLOs, all the stuff that faculty are grumbling about. I'm cautiously optimistic we've done a really good job on those. So this just kind of gives you a sense of the ones you really want to emphasize your time on. Sorry, it is slow. There we go. All right, so what does an on-site visit look like? It'll go that fast. Let's see. On Monday, they arrive. So really the on-site is scheduled for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but they typically come Monday so they can view the off-campus instructional sites. For us, that's Bayboro and the prison. We don't know if they're going to go into the prison, but they have the right to go into the prison, and they will likely want to if they can. It'll depend on timing and how much they need to dig into our other standards on the rest of the days. At that time, they will interview people at the off-campus instructional sites. So Bayboro, sweep your floors, make it look good. Make sure everybody, including students, are really aware of the importance of the team coming and want to engage with those people when they come. Tuesday is a little bit of a welcome day. This is our chance to really present the QEP. And they will have already read it, but we provide a presentation and then they'll dig into some questions and then they start interviewing. So in the afternoon, they're going to pick who they want to interview. We don't pick, they pick. So it'll be something to do with something that they read in a narrative and they're like, well, we need to talk to that chair or we need to talk to that particular faculty member. It'll be something like that. And it'll be people who have been flagged for credentials as well. So they will pick and we will cooperate. On Wednesday, this is probably the longest day for the committee. So they'll be tired. They'll probably have been up till 11 o'clock midnight the night before. So they'll be tired. The more we can provide for them and the less they have to dig when they are here, the easier we make their job when they are here, the easier they're going to be able to say that we're compliant. This is when they're going to meet with our board of trustees. This is when they're going to meet with the president. They're going to meet with students, faculty, and staff. Everyone is fair game when they're here. And at the end of the day, they will have they'll meet after they're done on their own, and they will determine compliance for each standard at that point. They'll talk with Dr. Ross. They'll tell him possibly that there's compliance issues or not, but they'll have some sort of closing meeting with Dr. Ross. They won't tell us what could be the issue. That will be announced the next day. On Thursday, they have an exit conference. That's a very formal process. They read the report, there's no questions asked, and then they're out of there and we can all take a deep sigh of relief. So are there any questions at this point about the process of reaffirmation?
Hey, Rebecca, before you go further, first
Yes.
of all, this is a fantastic presentation. It's extremely helpful, I think, for all of us, and very, very well done. I do want to make note of something, and of course, we know we are striving to be the best we can, but you know, we all make mistakes, etc. So I intentionally made a mistake earlier just to symbolize all of us making mistakes. As I was introducing the members of the cabinet, I did not introduce two members. And of course it was on purpose, just so that you would see that the president makes mistakes too. And with Michelle, we have two of our additional members of our cabinet that I did not recognize, and I deeply apologize. I'd like to recognize them now, if I may. We have Mr. Ronald Scott, who is department chair for the HST program in our prison. The HST program, I think, as you all know, is an innovative program. It's a one-of-a-kind program in our nation. It is doing fantastic work to help prisoners who are students so that when they get out of prison into society, they will have a much less chance, greatly reduced chance of committing crimes and coming back to prison. And Mr. Scott, thank you for the outstanding work you do as department chair of this program and for taking part in our SACS process as well. We also have with us Mr. Ed King, who is department chair for the prison education programs, not counting the HST program. And Mr. King does a wonderful job working well with all the faculty and staff there with the other programs. So thank you to both of you. And Rebecca, thank you for allowing me to show how mistakes do occur And to use this as a valuable illustration, actually, I did not
This
have
was
that plan. I just
continuous
messed up.
improvement, Dr. Ross. You evaluated, you came up with an action plan, and you made improvement. SACS would be proud.
Thank you.
All right, so are we good with the process? Or is everybody comfortable with the steps leading up to the onsite?
May I interject?
Yes.
I think this is a good point in terms of interjecting my experience. So Dr. Pesko shared with you the process, and it's almost like, excuse me, it's almost like she was in the Meridian Community College, because exactly what she identified is exactly the way the process went. One of the things I do know, I was one of the people who were selected to tour the campuses, and that's because of my arrival time. I was there early enough to do so, and in that experience, like she said, everybody was fair game. We visited a variety of facilities that they had. I was able to interact with the students and the instructor. One of the things that I know that would be important in the offsite when we start really going this blitz in terms of advertising the QEP, it's going to be important to have literature in the Baber locations about the QEP. It's going to be very important to have students be aware of the QEP in advance because they will be asked questions surrounding about the QEP. As she mentioned, there are going to be a team who's going to be dedicated to the task, who's going to be putting forth long hours to assist us and try to find every way possible to make us compliant. There are certain situations that just doesn't afford them the opportunity to do so. There'll be times where even after the interview process may be over, they may question one or two things that would lend itself for them to have a follow-up interview. My experience in the past, because I was here during the last reaffirmation, we had to do must statements during that time, where the executive team was the primary people who were interviewed during that time. However, as she mentioned, everyone is fair game. I interviewed people that of their staff that probably we wouldn't have thought that I would have requested an interview. And I can't go in specifics because of the confidentiality statements that I've signed, but generically, it is just important for everyone to know that everyone is fair game for an interview. And there's nothing about the interview that they're is going to put pressure on you. I mean, it's just a general conversation. They're going to ask you questions, and you just respond in accordance to what we do, and they'll be fine with that. There may be times where the interview process, we may be tag teaming. It may be a group of people interviewing, and that's good as well. Or you may be the only one in the room with the interviewees. But as mentioned, on the final day, a team selected by Dr. Ross will be in the exit room to hear the exit interview. They'll give the results of their visit. During that time, we are not going to be allowed to ask any questions during that process. They can't tell you why they didn't find why they couldn't find the why they couldn't find us in compliance with an issue. They're not going to be able to ask any question of that caliber. And while I'm continuing, I apologize for you not seeing my face. I was looking at my dual screen instead of my actual laptop. And so that was brought to my attention, and I appreciate that. So, but my experience at Meridian Community College was exactly what Dr. Pesko has described. And it's not something for us to be fearful because it's the things that we're supposed to be doing on a daily basis. But one of the things that I will emphasize is that once we start reading the document that she's going to provide in January, we need to look at the entire document and not just say, well, that's not my area, because someone outside the area may be able to find things that's wrong with that particular standard. And so that will be a great big help. And also, when you're reading those documents, we need to look at the documentations that are tied with the standard to make sure that they fall in line with that particular standard. But overall, like I said, she did an excellent job in terms of describing the process.
I would say with the interviews too, just one last little note. There is, it sounds intimidating, but it was more when we had maybe one or two people interviewing an instructor, for example, it felt more like a chat. It wasn't like a job interview or a, interrogation. It was it's usually about your process. So explain your processes or explain your credentials, or can you give an example of when this happened? How did you respond? Not you as in general, but how was it resolved? I guess would be the right way to say it. So it really, they were short too. They were typically pretty short. So I'll get into how we're going to prepare for that a little bit later, but we do have a plan for that. Once I get forward again. Why is this so slow? There we go. All right. So your role in reaffirmation, yay, you have a role in this. So it's November. Do you see this little thing over to the side, November? So your things that you're supposed to be doing now. I'm asking that you familiarize yourself with the resource manual. I gave you a copy of it, and I don't know if I'll be able to share it well in here, because that's the handbook. I was going to point out something in the resource manual. I'll try to get that a little bit later. You're going to familiarize yourself with the resource manual. You're going to continue to do what you have already been doing a wonderful job with, providing supporting documentation and giving feedback. So a lot of people have been getting entire standards to review. Some people have been getting paragraphs to review, and just maybe give me something else to write about along those trains of, that train of thought. So I've been getting wonderful, timely feedback, and I can't thank you enough for that. And then I'm asking that you read the working draft of the QEP. You received that in your email as well. The draft that you see is as Cameron left it. So there are things I know that still have, certain people are in different roles and things like that, but it is as Cameron has left it. But I need you to read that from the beginning to the end. That'll be your first step to really understanding where we are with the QEP. The month of December, I'm going to create a missing document list. These are going to be the things that I'm still needing from individual departments. Maybe I requested them a long time ago and they kind of got forgot about, or maybe there was a miscommunication, but it's where we stand with the missing documents. And then I'm going to ask that you scramble to find those in December. A few were waiting on factors outside of our control, an audit, for example, those types of things. But most of the documents we have ready in-house. I just need to get that mobilized at that point. And then you're going to receive a working draft of all the standards as written. Sometime the week of December 13th through 17th, hopefully earlier toward the week rather than later. If there is a standard that still is not complete at that time, I will just simply have in the standard still in progress, still under construction, and I'll finish it over Christmas break and you'll have it before you get back in January. And then I need you to start the reading process. This is not the most riveting novel to read. I understand that. It's very technical in nature. That's how they want it. So you probably are going to have to read it in bits and pieces, tackle a couple standards a day, because it doesn't flow well. It's just not very intriguing, especially if it's not your area. In January, it's all hands on deck. So January, the SACS reaffirmation is a huge priority. This is our last chance to review all the standards for compliance. You're going to submit any edits or concerns to your VP, and then there'll be discussions among with EC and Dr. Ross and myself to make changes as needed, to strengthen as appropriate, and then all edits should be done by January 31st. So after January 31st, we're not putting anything else in Weave. It's done. My little slow screen. I'm hitting the space bar, but it's just taking us a little time. Sorry about this, guys. Normally, all right. So how to read for compliance. So this is your Compliance 101 lesson. What we're looking at is each standard should be standalone. So remember I talked about how the committee of about 6 or 7 people is assigned to review the standard. What they do is they break up the standards. So Rebecca would get this list of standards, and I'm paired with another committee member on each of them, the different person, and one person's the primary writer, but both people read, they discuss together, they determine compliance. So a lot of these standards go in sequence. I think some of the driest ones were the 4s. That's all the Board of Trustees standards. And they're asking the very similar questions. And so you're going to see a lot of redundancy. There's a purpose for that. It's because the person who gets the standard doesn't get the next one. And so they're not going to look outside of their standard. They only look in that self-contained standard. Each standard is its own storybook, and they don't look in any other novel to find compliance. They're not like, oh, wait, they did demonstrate that in the 13s down here. They only do it based on what was provided in that standard. So approach it that way yourself. That'll also explain why you're like, wait, I think I already read this. It's because you did. There's some paragraphs that for consistency's sake are kept the same, multiple standards. Read all the narratives, not just the ones that you think might be related to your department. We're asking everybody on the cabinet to read all of them. The first step, so there's a sequence as to how you would do this if you were going to be reading for compliance. The first step is to review the resource manual. And I told you I would pull that up a little bit. There are 2 areas in the resource manual you want to pay attention to. One is the rationale and notes, and one is the questions to consider. Did my resource manual pop up on the screen? Okay, thank you. So here is an example of, I picked student services because it's a lengthy standard. There's a lot to it, but here's the student services standard. Remember I told you there were standards that were core requirements. These standards are tied to federal requirements. The CR next to a standard means it's a core requirement. The reason why this is important for you to observe when you're reading for compliance is because these standards, regardless of if they are found compliant and given a thumbs up in the offsite, we will be accountable for these on the onsite. They're going to come back and they're going to say, hey, you wrote a great narrative. That was awesome. But because it's a federal requirement, they're also going to say, let's just make sure this really is what you do. So when you read these core requirements, really read them and make sure that's your process. A lot of times I've written a process based on our policy and procedure manual and state code and general statutes, but maybe that's not what we do at all. And we don't want to have something that's wrong in our compliance certification, not only for the ethical implications of it, but it's just not going to be consistent with how these narratives, like these interviews, are going to happen. And they're going to say that was nothing at all what was written. So we do want some consistency here. It might be something simple as a change of words, or the process changed since the last time I was familiar with it. So really be comfortable with the core requirements and what's stated in there. You'll start by reading the rationale and the notes. This is their justification for why the standard is important. So it really kind of gives you the reason why the standard exists. They're not all as long as this one, but then you go to questions to consider. They will tell you at all the SACSCOC meetings that you do not have to address every single question, but almost every single time someone's deemed non-compliant, it's because they didn't address a question. So we need to make sure that every single question is answered in the narrative. Because of this, sometimes when you read the standard, there'll be this really weird sentence at the end, like Pamlico Community College is not a military institution. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? That was because there was no other place to word that into the narrative. And I needed it to stand out because it was a question to consider. So that's, kind of some of the reason behind how this works. The sample documentation is just to give us ideas. You can kind of ignore this piece. It's not a requirement. It's just to kind of give us an idea of the types of things they would expect to see to demonstrate compliance. So I wanted to show you those parts of the resource manual. So kind of review the resource manual for the standard you're about to read. Then read the standard for accuracy. That's the #1 important thing I can't emphasize enough. We have to be ethical about this process. So read for accuracy. Make sure that what's stated is what it happens. A good way to do this is to ask yourself, if I was interviewed or on the on-site and they asked for backup documentation to prove that this is what we do, would I be able to find this? That could be a kind of a red flag of, well, I guess that isn't really our process. The next question to ask yourself is this something that we really do? Yes, but I have no documentation for. Well, you have some time, kind of keep that in the back of your mind, kind of start collecting some documentation, you know, that type of thing. If maybe it'll help you kind of clean up your process if that is the way you're supposed to be doing it. The next step is to look at it as though you're a peer evaluator. Say you were brought onto this team and you're determining compliance for Pamlico. Does the standard demonstrate compliance? I promise you my feelings will not be hurt if you say, no, Rebecca, you did not demonstrate your compliance on this question. That's what I want to hear. We're trying to find our weaknesses in these narratives. So if you think that the narrative did not adequately demonstrate compliance for one of those questions, those are the types of discussions that we want to have. The other thing is make sure that the evidence that was attached or the way we demonstrated compliance was really strong. Because again, I'm taking it from my own perspective. I don't know everything that everyone's doing in every department. So I may be aware of some initiative that happened and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. I'll put that in. But you may know something that's even stronger and that would even be a better example. So that if you can improve it with a better example or an additional example, those are the types of things you're looking to add. After you read for compliance, hold on, won't let me move forward again. You're going to discuss the narrative with your vice president. So this is your chance to make sure that you've had this conversation with your vice president. Vice presidents are going to be sending me the feedback. So please don't hold your feedback for January 25th, because that doesn't really give me a lot of time to enter it into leave. Continually send your feedback because that gives me more time to make the edits and to resolve things. Please, when you send VPs, when you send the feedback to me, include the standard name in the title of the email. There's a lot of standards. So it's just really, really, really helpful to have the standard name in the title of the email. All the edits must be done by January 31st. So give me a little while to make the edits. It's actually quite time consuming to prepare the documents. A lot of them need to be redacted or resorted into a single document and hyperlinked. A note about supporting documentation. Some standards are fine. Some people already have access to all the supporting documentation that they would need to look through for the hyperlinked documents. Other standards are sensitive in nature. We are a small college, so even though I've redacted, it doesn't take a genius to figure out whose employment evaluation you would be looking at, or whose credentials you'd be looking at, or what student is being referenced. So for that reason, not everybody is receiving the supporting documentation. Your VP has access to all supporting documentation, or will very shortly if they don't already. So if there's a document that you'd like to see, work with your VP to look at the document, because it's just not a good idea to send out all of this information on such a wide scale. Any document you look at, consider it as internal only. They should not be shared or retained outside of the scope of what we're doing today. There would be no reason to do that. Tips for reading. All right, so first of all, you're reading for compliance, you're not reading for edits. Amanda McAllowitz, one of the people who is helping us with IE, and FIDA are both reading for edits. And a lot of those edits have already come back and I've printed them and they're sitting in a folder, but I plan on working on those in January because I'm just trying to get through the narratives. So there are a lot of people working on the editing part. Focus your time and your energy on the compliance piece. the color coding, you're going to see some colors when you see it. If it's underlined, that means it's a hyperlink supporting document. If it's blue, it means I still need to hyperlink the document. I'm still working on that. If it's red, it means I have concerns about the information being accurate, or I'm still collecting information. Usually there's a note in parentheses next to that with who I've reached out to verify, but red is like, don't submit yet, don't submit this to SACS because we're not positive this is correct. If something's pink, that means it's a note to myself. Most of those notes have already been taken out in preparation to send them to you, but if you run across something in pink, it's just a memo to myself so I don't forget to put something in. If you see a red and you know the answer, then that would be great, because sometimes the red means I'm having trouble finding it. So are there any questions about your role and how to read for compliance? You guys are excited about this, right? All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is moving forward. So after we get through this and we submit this report, I will go take an amazing vacation somewhere or something. I don't know. I'll probably just sleep for a couple weeks. But once this is done, then we shift gears. So they have the report. So then we have to really shift gears. At that point, with the heavy focus, the energy that I was spending on the compliance certification is going to shift to support the QEP. I'm also going to prepare some on-site coaching sessions for each department. By this, I just simply mean I'm going to meet with every department to kind of help identify the types of questions that may be asked of everybody. So remember how Jamie said everyone's fair game. So I'm going to meet with each department and kind of go over the types of things and the language. You're going to notice that some of the language that we use in our compliance certification is not the same language we use internally. So program coordinators is the perfect one. SACS looks for the term program coordinators. That for us, it's such a small school, is pretty much always the full-time faculty member for that department. So Neil is the program coordinator for early childhood education. Now, most faculty aren't really aware that that's a formal name attached to their role. They know they're the subject matter expert and things like that. So a lot of the prepping sessions are going to be to kind of translate some of that SACS language and to help identify the things that are really important to them. Number one thing, when you're interviewed, just be honest. It is so much better to be honest with the processes that you do than to try to feed them what you think that they want. So that's the number one takeaway. But in those coaching sessions, we're going to really highlight the good things that we do. So when we have to provide an example for something, it'll be a really strong example because everyone will be like, oh, that's right. They're going to like this. So we're going to share this type of information with them. And we're also going to work on the travel logistics for hosting the on-site team. That's a huge thing. So we actually have to pick them up from the airport. They'll all be coming in at different times, get them here, host them, feed them, entertain them, travel them back and forth from wherever they're going to be staying back to campus. So there's a big component to hosting. Oh, and then get rid of them. So we're going to be spending a lot of time preparing that and making a nice visit for them and just kind of showcasing our area. And then we also have to bring a QEP evaluator as part of it. All of these people are coming from outside the state of North Carolina. They will be from community colleges, but nobody will be from inside the state of North Carolina. And that's one thing I forgot to say in my earlier part of the presentation. When you're reading for compliance, picture if you didn't know anything about the North Carolina community college system, because some of you are really well knowledgeable in the fact that every state runs their community colleges differently. We run it uniquely in North Carolina compared to these other states. So a lot of what you have to read through is, would this make sense to someone who really didn't understand how the system office works with the 58 community colleges? So you kind of have to read it from that lens as well. All right, we're almost done. We're going to take a few minutes to talk about the QEP. So one of the things that Jamie and I both picked up in our review was that everyone needs to understand the QEP, and the QEP is in a great place. It was planned very well. We are in our pilot year right now, but the one thing that's lacking is a deep understanding of the QEP across the whole campus. So I'm going to give you 3 slides. I think it might be 4, but just the basics of the QEP. And I'm really happy to announce that Paul Goodson's also going to be our new QEP director. So he's going to be the face of the QEP that is going to be meeting with you and promoting the QEP moving forward. But since this was a recent change, I'm presenting today to not put Paul on the spot. So the QEP is 7.2. That's the standard. When we submit to SACS the first time, it just says QEP is coming. You'll see it in a few weeks. So you don't actually have to write to the QEP and the compliance certification, but it's split up into 5 different standards, 7.2A, B, C, and each one of these are looked at separately. It's a project. It's a 5-year project where the campus has identified a weak area in student learning or success. And we are going to all rally around this project to make student learning and success better for a 5-year period. And then at the 5th year, we write up something and say, yeah, it worked, didn't work, this was great. So you kind of think of it as like a science experiment, a big action plan for 5 years. And so there's a few key components that make a successful QEP, and that's what they're looking at when they come. They want to see that it was part of our comprehensive planning process. The idea was made sense because it aligned with our overall planning processes. They want to see that it has broad-based support. That includes students, so that there's going to be a lot of effort to promote student engagement in the QEP. And that it improves student learning outcomes and or success. That was a change. It used to only be student learning, I believe. We have to demonstrate we have adequate resources committed to it. That demonstrates that we're committed, and that we have a plan to assess its effectiveness. So those are the key components to any QEP. Our QEP is, so this is where you have to like pay attention. I'm giving you all the elevator speech for the QEP. So this is what you have to be able to know the basics. Our QEP is titled Learning Like a Boss at PCC. So BOSS stands for Boosting Online Student Success. And we're looking to achieve 3 things by improving student online learning experiences. We're looking to improve overall success rate. So we determine success based on if someone passes the class with an A, B, C, or just a pass. So we want to improve success rate. We want to increase the overall course grades that students get. We want to make sure that not only do they pass, but they pass better than they did before. And we want to decrease the number of students that withdraw, because withdrawing means something didn't go wrong. They had a goal, and for whatever reason, they dropped out of the course. That's a sign that something didn't go right. So those are the 3 things we're trying to accomplish with our 5-year QEP. This thing is driving, there we go. All right. There are, I went too forward. Come back. We're going to accomplish this through 3 action plans. So the first action plan is about student orientation. Basically what this means that students come in, if they have not taken an online class before, they complete a questionnaire. Based on their responses on this questionnaire, we will identify if they fit at risk, if they're at risk, so they'll get flagged at risk. If they're at risk, then we have a different plan for them. So they are going to take one of 2 paths to make their online experience most successful. They will either have to take ACA their first time with an online class, because ACA will help teach them how to be successful in Moodle and all the other college skills. Or they will have to take a Con Ed course. If they really need a lot of remediation, they're going to take a Con Ed course at the same time they're enrolled, and they'll get the one-on-one attention that they need at that point to be successful in an online setting. So that's the plan. Number 1 is student orientation. Plan number 2 is faculty certification. So we've got the students, we're going to identify our most at risk and give them intervention. And then number 2, we're going to make sure that our teachers are well equipped to teach online courses. So over the 5-year period, all the teachers, part-time and full-time, will complete some courses through Quality Matters that will make them certified to be good online instructors, so that their content is more successful for students to take in. And then the third action plan is to tie the students and the faculty together in a stronger way. So there's going to be some sort of synchronous engagement, some real-time engagement. Right now, a lot of our online courses, it's not synchronous. It's, you know, some are in the night and some are on the weekends, and we're trying to connect the two of them. The biggest push is student hours. This is when I talk about how students are supposed to know about the QEP. This is the part that they're supposed to know about. Instead of office hours, we're going to be calling them student hours. Students typically don't know what office hours are for. So we are renaming it at the college as part of our QEP. They're student hours. Our faculty already have 5 hours a week. Our full-time faculty already have 5 hours a week that are office hours. 2 of those hours are going to become synchronous by Zoom. So we are leveraging Zoom in this. They will have their Zoom account open or available. And so it'll be the same hours every week. It could be the evening, it could be whatever works for their students. And then that gives a chance for the student to check in. And we're going to incentivize students to do this through some sort of reward system early on until they get the hang of it. And courses with very high enrollment and very low success rates, we're going to identify those high enrollment, low success rate courses. They're also going to have some synchronous class hours as an option as well, so that we're trying to improve this real-time communication. So that's your elevator speech of the QEP. So kind of when you read it, that's all that document is supporting the 3 outcomes and the 3 action plans to achieve these outcomes. So hopefully that helps. I know it's been a lot. The QEP has been a lot with this development. And so I think a lot of people understood it at first. They knew it was about online learning, but they didn't know the specifics. But this is the time when we need to start learning the specifics of that. And Paul's going to be doing a lot of work to help promote the QEP and awareness of what that is. And I think he's going to do a great job at that. I'm very excited about that. So my parting thoughts for you about just SACS in general. I know it's a lot and it's intimidating and it's very different than the 5th year. You know, I feel like the 5th year was writing a dissertation and submitting it and we're done. But the reaffirmation is more like climbing Mount Everest. You know, you do a lot of preparation and then you meet challenges and then a little bit more. And it's a 2-year Mount Everest trek until we get reaffirmed. And so it's an ongoing process and it's a little bit much when you're invested in it, but it's all about continuous improvement. Everything about SACS is continuous improvement. So you can picture reaffirmation as a deep clean of your house. You know, when spring comes around and you're like, okay, time to pull out that dresser drawer and oh my goodness, look at the dust bunnies behind it. Time to clean that up. That's really what we're doing. You know, we have a really good institution and good processes in place, but this is our chance to kind of look at, are we doing what we used to be doing? Like, or did we kind of drift away from maintaining dusting behind the cabinet? And so it's our chance to clean up processes and to revisit processes too, because there may be things that we were doing just because we've always done it that way, not because it was necessarily the best for student success. And everything that we do, the reason why these standards are included in SACS in their standards are because they can relate how that's going to make a student more successful. So this is all about making sure our students have the best opportunity to be successful. You know, even the facilities, the things that they look at in the facilities are our science labs. You know, our science labs really giving our students what they need to be successful in science. So it feels invasive. I know a lot of you are like, man, she's asking for a lot, but we're demonstrating compliance. And through that process, hopefully we're reevaluating where we stand and where we could be better. And that's all SACS wants to see, is this process of continuous improvement, this constant evaluation, assessment for how we can get better, and then taking those steps to be better. They just need thousands of pages of documentation to prove it. But you know, we've got that. So hopefully that helps you kind of understand the SACS's reason behind all of it. It really is better for students in the end. So that's it for me, Dr. Ross.
Rebecca, thank you so much. I've been involved in SACS in Florida, Virginia, and now North Carolina. And that's the best presentation I've ever seen in terms of explaining the process, preparing our team for all that we need to do. So I commend you, and I thank you for giving me time. You know, you and I have been meeting on a regular basis to go over this, and I do want to say to everyone that I'm making it a priority, and I'm asking each of you to make it a priority. Each of you very, very busy, but make it a priority for our students' sake, and this will go very, very well. Rebecca mentioned Cameron Kishel. Cameron did a fantastic job with the QEP, and he was offered a position close to home and took it, and had the vast majority of our QEP document prepared before he left. But he did do a great job. I want to recognize him. Also want to thank Paul Goodson for agreeing to be the new director of our QEP, and for all of you for all that you're going to do. Also, I would like to go around the room and give each of you about a minute if you wanted it. If not, that's fine. For any thoughts that you have on the process or any questions, I'll start with Jamie. Jamie, and thank you for your outstanding insights as someone who took part in a visitation. What concluding thoughts might you have?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that Dr. Pesko, she's done a wonderful job in the process. But one of the things I think she didn't mention is the fact that she's going to need a lot of help when they're coming. She's not going to be able to do it by herself in terms of the preparations. You know, the behind the scenes things that she may have to prepare, such as goodie bags, their transportation, you know, their assistance with transportation. So she's going to have to reach out to members of the college to pull this off. Our work, and as it relates to her, doesn't stop when she sends the document off, because there's a lot of work to be done after that.
Great comments, Jamie. Absolutely correct. Thank you. Michelle Willis, any thoughts?
I just want to say Rebecca's doing a great job. Everything that she's been sending me to proofread has been very detailed information. If she's missed something, I'll be surprised, because she's really hit on all the points and is doing a great job.
And thank you very much, Michelle. Sherry?
Yes, sir. I think I had just gotten here when we went through our last reaffirmation in 2013. I had been here for about 2.5 years at that point, and I remember the chaos that ensued at that point. And I just commend Dr. Pesko, because this has been a lot smoother process preparing for this next reaffirmation. And I think she's done a lot of the legwork to help us, because, you know, of course, our day-to-day duties don't stop, and SACS takes a lot of time. But I think that it's important that we dedicate the time that's being requested of us to do, you know, everything that we can to make sure that the college remains successful in this endeavor. So I just commend her for everything that she's done in the organization that she's been able to display in working this process out.
Thank you so much, Sherry. And I certainly agree with that. Rebecca has been fantastic. I do want to also thank Michelle Willis, because Michelle has done a great job working with Rebecca. And Michelle and I meet on a weekly basis. And virtually every time we meet, we talk about how the SACS process can be supported even more. So Michelle, thank you. So thank you, Sherry. And Scott.
Yes, sir. Well, I've been through it. This is my 3rd time with SACS, and I I hate to give Dr. Pesko this kind of credit considering the pain she's caused me, but that's probably the best overview of the process I've ever heard. And it doesn't surprise me because I echo what Jamie and Sherry already said as far as, and everybody's already said as far as the way that she's handled this, because she's really made an effort to take some really complex things and simplify them for us to where they're more doable. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you very much, Scott. And I'm going to go around the room here. Christy.
I want to thank Rebecca for that review too. I've sat in on a couple of these, and it definitely is something that I think our employee base needs to understand more at a ground level than maybe they have in times past. I also want to say go team, Rebecca. I keep a lot of random things in my email and in my filing. So if you need something you can't find it, hit me up.
Thank you, Christy. Sandy. Oh,
Sandy, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sandy. It's not working for some reason. I thumbs up. Okay. Thank you, Sandy. We'll see at the end if it's working and give you a chance to come back on. But thank you very much, Neil.
Not a whole lot to say. Just it's really nothing to be afraid of. When they come and talk to you and ask you questions, you just answer them truthfully. I mean, it's not a witch hunt or anything. I mean, if we're doing something well, be sure to talk about it. If we're, if you can't answer the question, be truthful about that. Just because they find something, we have time to work on it and fix it, and same thing with a QEP. I mean, it's like a science project. The science project doesn't have to work. You still learn something from it when it doesn't work. So, there's nothing to be scared of there. It's a plan. It's set up. We're going to try it and we'll see if it works. And if it works, great, we'll keep doing it. And if not, then we'll tweak it and, make it work, or we'll find out it doesn't work at all. And maybe we'll come up with something else entirely. I mean, that's what we did with the last one. So, the new one's no different. So,
thank you very much, Neil. Paul. Oh, Paul, not able to hear you for some reason. It's still not. I'm not sure why, but not able to hear you. Well, yeah, still not able to hear you. Sorry. Scott, any ideas on what Paul can do in Sandy? Oh, and Scott.
He could go next door to Jamie's office and talk. I mean, that's an immediate fix, sir.
Okay, thank you. And while we're waiting, Derek?
Not much I can expand on about what's been said about Rebecca. She's done an excellent job. I feel we are truly prepared, and with her guiding the way of, providing this overview and the expectations for all the faculty and staff, I think we will, go through this process with flying colors. So as nervous and anxious as we can be, I think, and in the end, we'll be just fine.
And thank you very much, Derek. Eugene, thank you. Eugene.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for the opportunity. This is my first time completely going through this process, so I will be learning, but it does seem like Dr. Pesko has this firmly under control. And as I learned in my years with the federal government, I am standing by to support. So whatever you need from me, just let me know.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Well said. And Paul, would you like to take a moment?
Yeah, is this any better now?
Can it is, yes, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I also wanted to laud Rebecca with my portion of doing the library section for this. She was a tremendous help to me and really guided me through, because it's my first time through a process like this. So applause to her for that. And looking forward to this challenge with the QEP, and hope to get the campus informed and excited about that whole process that we're going to go through.
Thank you very much, Paul. You'll do a great job. And Paul, I think, is in a perfect position, highly respected, regarded by all your peers, Paul. So thank you very much. And now let's go to Michelle Novier. I can't hear you, Michelle. Do you want to come in my office? And now, ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Novier.
I need to put in a help desk ticket, I guess. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, yeah, this is my second. I was here for the last one. And in the days before telecommuting, and I know the director at the time, Rebecca's here at the time, she was here Saturday and Sundays. I remember her binders and her endless spreadsheets and her meetings. She was always going down the hallway to a meeting with somebody with her laptop. So I know what Rebecca's going through. I know the complexity of it. And we also know she's very detail oriented and perfectionist. So we feel confident she's doing a good job. We can see it. A lot of this was very familiar, although I know a lot has changed. And like everybody has said, we just, we have the right attitude about this, and we want the best for our students, and we'll do fine. We'll make mistakes. There'll be goofs. There'll be things we have to redo that we're not compliant with, but we'll get it right, and it'll be great. And I too throw my hat in the ring. Any logistical help you need when the committee comes or anything else I can do, I'm there.
Michelle, before you leave, speaking of students, as you did and what we're all about, could you take 30 seconds and remind the group about what's happening Saturday and why?
Well, yeah, everybody come on out to campus for the great 11th annual Great Oyster Revival and Chili Cook-Off, which supports student scholarships and campus projects. And we've all seen, I think, many of us firsthand, just not only the financial help when those students get those scholarships, but the moral support they get. I have seen that, the tears in the eyes, oh, you believe in me. Therefore, I believe more in myself. I can do this. And that's what it's all about. And we hope to raise some good money to help those students this Saturday. Y'all come on out. It'll be fun.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you. Fida. Fida, did you want to make any comments?
I'm just the keeper of the notebooks here. So
okay.
But I appreciate everyone's help when I've reached out for documentation, and Christy for stopping by every now and then, giving me a few words of wisdom, and for Sandy listening to me moaning and groaning over here when I'm struggling. But I think I really appreciate the opportunity to work not only with the college, but specifically with Rebecca. I'm really enjoying the journey.
Well, thank you very much, Fida. Kathy Osteen.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate the presentation you put together. It was really understandable, and I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Lori.
I thought this was the most comprehensive SACS document that I have seen in my past, so I appreciate that. I know CE is not on the radar, but we're here to support, and we'll communicate with the students to make sure that if they run into any of us, we'll be well versed.
Well, thank you very much. This was major league stuff today. We will make this available for all employees. Thank you to all of you for all you do. I am honored to serve as your president, and I'm here to serve all of you as we move forward and make even more lives better. Rebecca, thank you so much. Jamie, thank you for your comments. Thank you to all of you. And we did this on time. We ended at 12 o'clock. So thank you so much.